I stand before you this morning with mixed emotions. I'm so very proud to be able to participate in this Police Memorial Week activity. I want to express my heartfelt thanks to the organizers for asking me to participate. At the same time, I'm saddened because part of the reason I am here is we are honoring Officer James Vaughn of the Jackson Police Department, who was killed in the line of duty last year. I consider all police officers my brothers and sisters, but because I served as a Jackson police officer for the first 14 years of my career, I feel an even stronger bond with the men and women who serve that community. Jackson is where I was a real cop, and not the guy behind the desk that we all know has no idea what real police work is. In my career there, I patrolled the same streets and dealt with many of the same situations that Officer Bono did. And I even dealt with the same person who ultimately took his life. I stand in awe of Officer Bono's bravery and courage, and it makes me very proud to say that I too was a Jackson police officer. Chief Matt Heins of the Jackson Police Department started his career with the Jackson Police Department in 1989 as a cadet. And I had the pleasure of being his commander for the first 4 years of his career. And for the Big Rapids Department of Public Safety officers, yes, he does know the dreaded KMC on memo. Some of you may recognize his last name because his brother Larry, a sergeant at the Michigan State Police, served this community in the past as a member of CENA, our regional drug team. Matt rose through the ranks of the department, serving as a sergeant, a lieutenant, and deputy chief before being named chief in 2007. During his career, he has been a field training officer, member of the Police Honor Guard, member and team leader of their special response team. Chief Heins has a bachelor's degree from Michigan State University, a master's degree from Western Michigan. He is a graduate of the FBI National Academy and the Northwest School of Staff and Command. It is my great honor and pleasure to introduce a man of honor and integrity, a man who cares deeply about the men and women who serve under him, and together with him serve the community of Jackson. This time I introduce to you my friend, Chief Matt Heins of the Jackson Police Department.
I'd like to begin today by thanking you for the invite. I feel very humbled and honored to be here today to speak to you. I spent the last 5 weeks in your community attending the firefighters training at the public safety facility, and I've come to appreciate this wonderful community and this beautiful campus. As you progress through your career in law enforcement, you will have unbelievable stories. You will see things, hear things, and witness things you never thought possible or even existed. Some of these stories will be funny, some sad, and some tragic. All of them will remain with you for the rest of your life. March 9th, 2010 is a day I will never forget. It is a day that changed my life forever. At approximately 12:20 a.m., I received a call at home that an officer had been shot. The lieutenant making the call was recently promoted, so when I sensed the shakiness in his voice, I initially thought to myself, okay, maybe it's a minor injury and the lieutenant is just nervous dealing with his first officer-involved shooting. The lieutenant told me that Officer Bonham had been shot while at 140 Mitchell Street on a domestic. He was on his way to the hospital and did not know his condition. I told Lieutenant Hitt to go to the station, and I began dealing with issues related to the shooting, and I would respond to the scene and then make my way to the station. After I hung up the phone, I kept thinking Jim would be sent to the hospital, treated and released, and we would finish the investigation. I quickly called Deputy Chief Holder and told him of the incident and instructed him to respond to the station. I then called Lieutenant Simpson and instructed him to meet me at the scene. I live in the city, so the drive to the incident address only took about 4 minutes. As I jogged up to the front of the house in the mass chaos, I made contact with Sergeant Gleason. Sergeant Gleason has been in law enforcement for 25 plus years and works as a nurse in his second job. I knew I could trust his judgment on what was happening. Mike told me Jim had been shot in the armpit and that it did not look good. He said that he was transported to the hospital with Officer Darren McIntosh, who had also been shot in the leg. Mike said Officer McIntosh, who works for Blackman Township Department of Public Safety, was investigating a domestic in Blackman Township. He located the suspect at 140 Mitchell Street in the city and called for a city unit as backup to talk to the suspect. When they arrived, the fight began almost immediately. The suspect was able to obtain a handgun, hidden in a couch, and fired at Darren and Jim. Darren was shot once in the leg, and Jim was shot in the armpit. Darren was able to return fire and kill the suspect. I immediately pulled all of my people off the scene and sent them back to the station. I then requested the Sheriff's Department and Michigan City Police take over. I responded to the hospital to check on Jim and Darren. When I arrived, I was told that Jim was already in surgery and Darren was getting prepped to go into surgery. I began making phone calls and reached Jim's parents. I explained to them what had happened and that Jim was in surgery. They told me they were on the way to the hospital. They were driving in from Canton. A short time later, I received a call from Sergeant Jenks, who was assigned to stay with Jim, and told me Jim had died in surgery. It was at this very moment that I felt the weight of the world on my shoulders. Having never dealt with an officer's death, I had this sense of being lost and not knowing what my next steps were going to be. After what seemed like a lifetime, but I'm sure was only a minute or two, I realized that I did not have time to grieve and that I needed to move forward. I knew I had to get everyone notified in the department. I had to notify my boss and the city council, and I had to talk to Jim's parents. The week after Jim's death was the most stressful of my career. Many of the days are a blur, and to this day, I have people come up to me and mention they talked to me that week that I do not remember. Well, at the funeral home, the chief came to me and said that although I would not believe it at the time, I would eventually see some good things come out of Jim's death. At the time, I could not possibly see what good could come of such a tragedy. Now, 14 months later, I do understand what the chief was referring to. Jim's death brought our department together and created a stronger bond than I've seen in my 22 years at the department. Officers are now aware where everyone else is on the street and ready to respond to assist if needed. The bond that has been strengthened through grief will forever connect everyone to the department. The incident showed me the importance of taking your training serious and always planning for the worst. You may never need to depend on your training, but if you do, it will come without thinking. You should start now to mentally prepare yourself for the day comes where you may need to use deadly force. The moment you need to make a decision is not the time you should be asking yourself if you have the ability to use deadly force. Your life or someone else's life may depend on your decision. For me, Jim's death reinforced the belief that people are the most valuable asset that you will ever have. It's the employees that come in every day, do the best they can with the resources they have, and do amazing jobs even under the most difficult of circumstances. It is because of their hard work that chiefs such as myself can be successful. yourself in harm's way day in and day out to deal with the less desirables in our society, you have to stand up to the frequent ridicule and criticism takes a special kind of person. Many days the job of a police officer can be thankless. The hours can be tough, the work conditions deplorable, the stress on you and the family tremendous. Yet we do it day after day. We answer to the call for help. We head into the danger to address the problem. We willingly go in harm's way so we can help those who cannot help themselves. It takes courage, dedication, and the ability to think clearly while under pressure to do this. Character traits that set us apart and bind us together in such a way that outsiders will not or cannot understand. Our brotherhood is special. The true depth and meaning of it can only be understood by fellow officers. No matter where you are in the world, there is an instant bond when you come across a fellow officer. There's an unspoken understanding that you have shared the same miserable shifts, night shifts in a cold February evening, dealt with horrific crime scenes, witnessed innocent kids being harmed in ways you can never imagine, and gotten bruised and scraped up fighting with suspects. We know our sense of humor is different from everyone else's. The way we look at people is different, and the way we support each other is different. When we lose a member of this brotherhood, the pain is shared by all of us. This is true for officers lost in Detroit, Kalamazoo, or Jackson. Yet no one may pay the ultimate price one day. There are those, such as yourself, willing to take the risk and join this brotherhood. Enjoy every day as if it was your last. When you don't get hung up on the little things in life, love your family, support your co-workers, and then stop and enjoy a warm summer day. This is an honorable profession, and if you are willing to endure the hardships, excitement, and sometimes the sadness, I assure you, you will never regret your decision. After all, the stories you have at the end of your career will be amazing. Thank you.